Hello and welcome to the Mother Flutter podcast. Welcome to the first official episode of 2026. I have published some episodes on YouTube in 2026, but they were all recorded in 2025. A little secret there. But this is the official first episode of the Gregorian New Year, which we're going to talk about a little bit today. I want to talk about cyclical living today because all this new year, new you stuff is kind of pissing me off a little bit this year. And it's because I've been getting deeper into these like history rabbit holes and kind of like looking at practices that tie back to, my ancestors and my lineages, which is primarily Baltic, Irish, Celtic, Scottish, and a little French. And looking at the ways that, all these kind of pagan, nature-based spiritual practices evolved into Christianity and what we know today. And just learning about all of this has just made me feel like more connected to my spiritual practice, which is based in nature, as I've talked on here many times, talked about it on here. And I also want to talk about cyclical living, not only in the seasonality of our year and working with the seasons to work your magic practice or your manifesting practice or kind of plan your life or guide you, but also cyclical living in terms of like menstruation and being a woman who is constantly on this 28-day cycle. And I do have another podcast episode. It's an interview episode called Period Power, where I touch on that a little bit, but I really want to talk more about like my experience with it because I've been doing it for even longer now, over a year and a half of tracking my cycles and planning my whole life and whole month around them. And I want to talk about the two because there's the calendar year, right, of winter, spring, summer, fall, and there's also like the monthly 28-day cycle of those seasons, as illustrated in this brilliant book, Period Power by Maisie Hill, which I referenced in that earlier podcast episode. I think it's podcast episode 8. It's an interview with Dana Drehos. Hope I'm saying that right. But this book changed my life. I read it like 2 years ago approximately, and my cats like to chew my books sometimes. I don't know if you can see that. It's like this weird little fetish they have. But anyways, this book absolutely changed my life. How to harness your hormones and get your cycle working for you. Because I, always grew up dreading it. And, just like, it's half of the time I'm either like in PMS or bleeding and it sucks and it's like half the month. But there's no way around it. You know what I mean? Like, I guess you could take a pill and make it go away. Seems like that isn't, working out great in the long term for a lot of people, which she also talks about in this book. But I used to feel the same way about winter. Growing up in Chicagoland, whenever it was winter, it would just be like, oh, why? Like, when is it going to end? I hate this, it just feels dreary and like low energy. And now I've come to actually really appreciate and really like winter. And I think it's because I've embraced this seasonality and more like nature-based spiritual practices, and just embrace the winter, embrace the darkness, embrace the slower pace. It's a season of rest, really. So there's also, again, there's no way around it, so you might as well just like find a way to work with it. So, we are nature. And I think that this gets lost in our culture of, right, I'm on a MacBook recording with an iPhone, streaming to you on the internet, on YouTube and Spotify and whatever. And, we've got apps to track our sleep and our periods and our steps and our heartbeat and all this stuff. But so it can be easy to forget that, like, we are nature, like, we're just animals. We think of ourselves as more advanced animals, and maybe in some ways we are, but sometimes I wonder how much we've overcomplicated things in all of these ways. So I think that if you look at nature in winter, it's all about, dormancy and rest, right? Nothing blooms all year. Seeds are planted in frozen soil, and it seems as though they're just sitting there dead, right? As though nothing is happening. But it's only because of that rest and that dormancy and that, deadness that they are able to crack open and sprout new life and grow towards the sun and, bear fruit eventually in these incredible cycles, and then die again, and the cycle repeats. And we do the same thing, although I think our culture pushes us towards this idea that we're machines, that we're computers, or that we should be able to constantly produce, the same output, and, it should all be trackable in a spreadsheet, or, like, it just is that constant productivity. And I think that the New Year's coming in the dead of winter is just so counterintuitive and so against our nature, and frankly inverted for how our systems and bodies were built. And you might be thinking, well, if you're looking at our ancestors and stuff, that was a long time ago, where people were, tending the harvest and resting in winter because there was no farming to do, or very little. But if you really think about it, it was only like, 100 years ago, 200 years ago plus. It's not that far back in the grand scheme of things. And when you think about evolution and how even, our food systems and like the globalization of our food system, like, that's pretty new within the last, 50 years, 50 to 100 years, where we have these, which is just, a whole other thing that just really, upsets me with the waste, right? Because supermarkets sell more when the shelves are filled, even though there's, this enormous amount of waste with people who are hungry in the world. Like, it just makes no sense. The system's kind of broken. I'm kind of all for going back to an agrarian society. I would love to get some land someday and just have a huge garden and do canning and preserving and have some animals and all that. And I do think we'll see, and I hope we see, more people buying up land with friends and with family and with community, because I think that's going to be the way forward in terms of sustainability and just health, and knowing, what goes in your food and how rewarding it is. I definitely have a garden background. I grew up gardening with my grandma and with my mom. And then, one of my first jobs was at a nursery, a plant nursery in Chicago. And I kept, working seasonally at different nurseries. I probably worked at like 5. I worked at one out in the Pacific Northwest for 3 years, was doing garden design out there. I've done some garden design out here. Have worked with various, small farms and community gardens and things like that. So I've definitely been like up close in nature and its cycles so I think about plants a lot as I'm thinking about humans and, our cycle as we go through these seasons. And I guess I just want to go through, each season and talk about, the physical season of that, and then compare it to the menstrual cycle equivalent, as the brilliant Maisie Hill does in this book, Period Power. She lays each phase of the cycle out in terms of winter is like the follicular bleeding phase, like days 1 through 7 approximately. And then spring is going to be approximately days 7 to 14 and including ovulation. Summer is going to be, days 13 or so to 21, and then 21 to 27, 28 is the fall, which is going to be like your PMS, premenstrual. So I want to start with winter because that's where we are right now in the calendar year. It's January 17th at the time of recording this. This will probably be published in a week from today. And winter is really the time, right? It's the dark feminine half of the year. So what does that mean? It means that it's literally physically darker. And it's a time to go inward. What do I mean by go inward? Getting quiet out in nature. No outside distractions from your phone, from TV, from the radio, podcast. I do listen to the radio sometimes, actually. I keep it on the classical station in my car. So I guess it's not that old school. No outside distractions, going inward and just listening. Like, what does this period of darkness and rest what is the message there? And you can't hear the message unless you allow yourself to get quiet and allow yourself to be in that darker, quiet space. And the feminine energy, right, is the more receptive energy. So I do think it's so important this time of year. Some things that I'm doing, I do my daily morning walks in the woods year round, but they just feel extra important right now. Even if it's cold, I still go. And I actually literally have been hugging a tree. There's a particular oak tree. It's giant. And I just feel my heartbeat up against it. And I give it a little smooch. I do. I give it a little smooch. And I ask it for a message. and I receive the message. And I also think that meditation is super important this time of year. Again, all times of year, but this time of year. And just those blank spaces. I'm not saying don't go on your phone at all. Don't use the internet, go hide in a cave for 3 months. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying it's a good time, and I'm prioritizing more empty space. Times when I'm just not on my phone. This morning I laid in bed and I just I was laying in the sun and doing my face massage thing, and I just got my nails done. I don't know if you can't really see them, but I did this cat eye, or the gal did this cat eye on them, and it's this beautiful green, and it flashes also kind of a red and a brown, and then there's little tiny rainbow flecks in there too. And I was doing my face massage, and the sun was hitting it and hitting my nail, and I just felt like a kid again, because I could see, it was almost like it was magnified somehow with the reflection of the light and the glitter in my contacts, and I could just see these beautiful patterns of circles, and like they were radiating and connecting to other circles. You know, when you just get that like weird kind of like you're not fully focused on something, and it all turns into little like blurry, colorful dots. How do I explain this verbally? I hope I don't sound insane. And on no substances, no microdosing, no anything. Truly, just the sun hit the nail at the right spot, and it was just these absolutely stunning, like almost sacred geometry type patterns. And I was like, I knew there was some magic in getting your nails done, because it was just, yeah, absolutely beautiful. And I think most things, when looked at under a microscope, probably look that, beautiful. And then if you just break them down even further into the cell and the atoms. And so this is the kind of receptive shit I'm talking about, like just slowing down and noticing like the magic in the mundane, and letting your body kind of just, your nervous system, relax as much as possible. I know a lot of times people set like fitness and health goals this time of year, which is great. Like that's fantastic. I'm feeling the call right now to like not push too hard. I want to be healthy. I want to maintain, my thrice weekly strength or yoga and daily hiking and things like that. But I'm not pushing myself to like create any personal bests or, lean out as much as possible or anything like that. And then I think to just, compare this to the winter equivalent of the menstrual cycle, it's the same thing for me. I really block out more time to sleep or nap if I need to. And anything I say in, the seasonality of winter, the season versus like winter, the menstrual cycle, I think they can be interchanged because I think they're reflections of each other. So again, yeah, the menstrual winter, which is going to be the actual bleeding, blocking out more time to rest, again, to meditate, to have quiet space. That's definitely a time where I want to do like at least one no phone day, where I'm not checking social media, I'm not texting, just quiet. And those days can be really powerful resets for me. Like I like social media. I think it's a really helpful tool that, connects us and can build community. And it can also create a lot of noise and a lot of background noise. And I don't always realize how much until I do just like 24 hours without it. I took a few days off social media over the holidays, and it was like my whole brain just like reset. It was really nice. So I think doing that is definitely something to think about. I also slow down my workouts because I have less energy during that time. So I'm not going to be doing some, hour-long strength training, mat, body weight workout during that time. I just don't have the energy for it. Maybe, a hike, maybe some really slow, gentle yoga, maybe some dancing around, in my kitchen. I do, want to move my body and take care of my body, but that's not a time for me to push myself because energy is naturally lower. And, that's all explained by different hormonal dips and things like that. But our energy is naturally lower this time of year too. There's just less sunlight. Weather's a bit colder. We're literally just trying to preserve that energy to get through the winter. So spring is next. Oh, sorry. I totally just like drank that right into the microphone. I don't know if that bothers people. I'm new. So spring in a lot of like nature-based spirituality and ancient kind of like pagan-based spirituality. A lot of people say that, the true new year is the spring equinox, which usually is like late March, around March 20th, 21st or so. Some people say it's Imbolc, which I believe translates to in the belly, which is perfectly fitting for this because that would mimic like the womb, right? A woman's womb. This whole menstrual cycle thing that we go through is to be able to literally create children, which is a very energy taxing thing, an incredible thing that our bodies do. And I think that culture has kind of demonized it and made it, seem gross or shameful, and it's not. And it's not. I'm here to tell you it's not. And that's propaganda made to sell you shit and make you feel bad so that you buy more shit. Anyways, spring. Some people consider, the true New Year spring equinox. Some people say it's Imbolc, which I believe is February 1st. And then the actual lunar New Year is February 17th this year. And that is, to me, that feels like the new year in my heart this year. I don't know. Pick, you've got a few to choose from here. And this is this year of the fire horse that people keep talking about, which I'm very excited about. As a Sagittarius, horse-loving woman, I was born in a horse year. I was born in a metal horse year. And I'm a fire sign. And apparently the year of the horse is bringing all of this momentum, and I think about just like heart energy with the horse, because their hearts are so physically large that their magnetic field can actually like drop our blood pressure and our heart rate and do all these incredible things. And in the work I've done with horses, they're just absolutely incredible beings that have cracked open my heart. But yeah, apparently the year of the horse is all about this like forward momentum and fast changes and really kind of like stepping into authenticity from what I'm hearing. And we're still technically in this year of the snake, the wood snake, until February 17th. And so by the time this comes out, there's still shedding to do, right? We're still breaking down the old and, composting these things that are dying, literally and physically, perhaps, in our lives, and composting them into something new for the spring. So what that's looking like for me right now is just really evaluating, what in my life is draining me, who and what, and, what situations I've gotten myself into that are just not serving me, and how to let those go, and thinking about, well, what comes next. But you have to make space for the new, so that what's next can come in, just like a garden, right? In January, February, you're cleaning away debris. You're cutting shit down, cutting shit back, clearing stuff out so that new growth can occur and has the space and the oxygen and the sunlight to do so. I'm also decluttering a lot. Just like I just renewed my lease in Texas, and I wasn't sure if I was going to stay here, but I really like this apartment, and it just felt like the right thing to do. So I just renewed my lease, and now I just want to get rid of like everything. And I don't have a ton of stuff. I don't have a ton of clutter. Closets and drawers are not bursting at the seams by any means, because I've done so many big sheds over the years, but I'm still clearing away that space again. And I think, people talk about this a lot with manifesting too, and decluttering. It's like you have to make space energetically for the new blessings to come in. Even though, you're like, oh, well, I don't need physical space for a new job. It's just like the energy, as above, so below. our physical space is very much representative of, what's going on in our mind, and our mind is going to, affect what's going on in our bodies and in our lives. And it's just, all these things are interconnected, and we pretend they're not, but they are. So I do think it's really important to physically clear out space for new blessings. And I think the same thing can be true of, relationships, whether it's friendships or romantic relationships. You can't make space for something new until you clear the space energetically for what's no longer serving you. So a lot of people talk about these like placeholder relationships, or, foster him till he finds his forever home, or, that doesn't work for me. I don't believe in that, because I really truly believe, and in my own life have seen it happen and experienced it, where the new thing doesn't come in until you cut out the old. And it's scary, because there is that liminal space in between of, well, what if I'm lonely? Or, what if something new doesn't come? Or what if I don't, find a new job? Or what if, that's the best I can ever have? But like, your body already knows it's not right. So just cut it out. I know it's easier said than done. But again, this can be friendships, family, work, romance. So that's kind of what I'm thinking about in this new phase coming up of like this Imbolc Lunar New Year before the spring equinox. And in the menstrual cycle comparison, that would be the time where, in this book that I keep referencing, she talks about in your spring, you're gonna feel really good, because you just felt super tired, and you were out of it, and you didn't have energy to maybe do the things that you love or do the things you want to do. And so you're going to be excited, and you might want to like hit the ground running, but like just hold that energy back just a little bit. Just like keep some in the tank for the actual like summer, when you're at that peak energy, and when it's really time to like bring in the masculine energy. What do they call it? The yang energy. I heard someone say yang recently, and I was like, is that what it's called? I have no idea, but you know what I mean? That like action, doing masculine energy, right? So spring, keep a little bit in the tank. And it's also a good time to try, new things, right? So like, in my cycle, if there's a new like dance class I want to take, or art class, or, whatever it is that's a little bit new and out of my comfort zone, I know that period before ovulation is a good time to do that. And that's when I want to start like engaging socially a little bit more, maybe not full on, but that's when I'm ready to kind of like come out of my shell a little bit. And so I like to think about spring like that too. It's not about instant, action and seeing things change. It's just about the little, sprouts and buds on a tree, right? It's not this big, intense energy. That's summer. So summer is that time of that, again, masculine go, go, go energy, action, when you're really building, and you've got the momentum, and you've got that peak energy, right? The sun is at we've got the longest days of the year. Weather is warm. People they're ready to be out and doing stuff and socializing and making connections and building and all that. So that's really that time to like work and get shit done, and do those harder workouts and be challenging yourself and pushing yourself and all that stuff. Of course, there's, rest is important in every season too, but there's times when, you want more of it. And then fall, right? That's the harvest. And that's, fall is my favorite season, absolute favorite season. I was born in the fall. I will die in the fall, maybe. I love it. I love it so much. Apparently I did a color analysis. I'm a fall color palette, which makes sense. Anyways, this is the time to harvest, right? Harvest the fruits of your labor from spring and summer and from the dormancy of winter as well. And this is also the time to start to do a little bit less, right? Start to kind of prepare for winter. This is like definitely a nesting phase where you're, looking at your home and getting, cozy and maybe bringing in new throw blankets or decor or whatever. Cooking and preparing. And I think the cycle equivalent for me, which has been so helpful, is so in my summer, I want to do a big food shop. And that's something I learned from this book. Do your big food shop in summer, because if you do it too late in the fall or in winter, you're just going to buy or at least me, I'm going to want to buy cheesy puffs and ice cream and all this shit, which is good and great. And if I have a little bit, great. But if I have too much, I feel sick and it just makes things worse. So making sure that I'm eating well in my fall and in my winter, and actually preparing some food ahead and putting it in the freezer to make sure that I'm not, I'm not going to want to cook as much during that time. I will still, depending on energy and what I have going on work-wise and everything else, but just making it easier for future you that's going to be wanting to, chill the fuck out. So fall is, time to kind of be preparing for winter and enjoying the harvest season and starting to go inward just a little bit. And in the menstrual cycle equivalent, it's a good time to set boundaries and to, I think as women, we're taught so often to be ashamed of the anger that we can feel during that time and the rage. And I have probably told this on this podcast before, but I had a therapist very wisely tell me and challenge me on that assumption one time of me feeling guilty about, oh, well, I'm on my period, so I'm a bitch or whatever. And her being what if that's actually your body telling you the truth? And I just whoa. And I think there's so much value and wisdom in that, because as women, we're taught to be nice and put up with so freaking much. And fall is really a time when your body is you know what? No. And that is the time to set the boundary and to say the thing, maybe with a pause and a deep breath first, but say the thing and just ride it, and none of these things are bad or good. Again, I used to dread winter. Actually, living in Texas, we have somewhat of a winter where I am. It was in the 30s this morning. I was bundled up, but it's pretty mild overall. But I miss true winter. I actually miss I miss snow, and I kind of miss the dreariness. And I might regret that if I move to a place with full on seasons. We do have seasons here. They're just more mild, but I do miss true winter now that I just know how to lean into it. And now that I don't drink much anymore. I used to drink pretty regularly, and I think that affected my mood. I was trying to medicate, I think, and it didn't work. So, if I moved to a climate with true winter again, I wonder how I would handle it. But anyways, that's my little cyclical living podcast for you today. I think that it's helped me so much to just lean into the realization that I'm not going to feel the same, all the time. Even with appetite, I was thinking about this today, when I'm in my follicular, when I'm in my spring, summer, I have, of course, an appetite, but in the morning, hard-boiled egg, piece of toast, coffee, I'm good. I'm good for 4 to 6 hours. Oops. But when I'm in the fall and in the winter, 2 pieces of toast, 2 eggs. oh, I want cake too. And, beef stew and a full on sandwich, like appetite just shoots up. And that's okay. My body, like your body literally does need more energy during that time. And I used to, fight it and then like try to exercise so I wouldn't bloat. But it's just a natural cycle of how we work, and not fighting it and leaning in and using it to my advantage of, hey, when am I going to be the sharpest to get X, Y, and Z done? When am I going to be wanting to do that really deep clean in my house, fall nesting, or summer? When am I, going to really need to block out time to like rest and have some me time? Winter, for sure. And it's just helped me so much to work with it, and instead of fighting it, both the actual seasons and the 4 seasons of the menstrual cycle in my body that women, we go through every single month. So thank you so much for listening. Goodness gracious, we're at 35 minutes already. I appreciate you. I hope you have a lovely day, a lovely end to your winter season, and I will see you next time. Bye.